So I got asked about what happiness is the other day. And, you know, being asked what happiness is by a doctor is kind of crazy. They know what they're doing, right? And it's to challenge me to look at the world differently, And there's a lot of easy answers that come about when you think of like eating good food makes me happy. Uh I like cars, so like driving fast or going to like drift events, that specific feeling is happiness. And I think that's, after giving it some thought, a little reductive. I think happiness is a lot more than that, right? There's plenty of people in this world that find happiness without specific things or without, going out and being able to like buy a matcha and listen to Claro, like there's so much more to happiness than like our access to things. You could assume that happiness from this point is people, right? Because at least, people who aren't alone can have happiness. There's a lot of like evolutionary psychology and like happiness being derived from our ability to be in communities, like that fundamental aspect of being a human is what has allowed us to become the great species that we are right now is collaboration, right? So it's almost like there's a reward within ourselves to be close to people, that could be considered happiness, right? But there's plenty of people that have happiness or would say they're happy with little to no interaction with people. So I think what I'm getting at is every person is different. I'm clearly different than anybody else, than the person who asked me what happiness is. My lovely cat's gonna knock over my camera. So then, like, for an overarching definition of what happiness is, I wanted to dig in even deeper, right? If each one of these people's finding happiness, if each one of these people is finding happiness through their own avenues, right? So there must be something about the person themselves that can make them happy, right? And if each individual thing is something that that person has to discover in order to make themselves happy, then happiness must be the discovery of oneself. Shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be? It's one of those things where if the person doesn't know themselves well, they won't be able to know what their happiness is. They will most likely be very unhappy. A good example is people who think pursuing fame or fortune is going to bring them happiness, but we've all seen what that does to people. Like, unless that's really what you want, like, it crushes people's souls. They lose their privacy. They lose their ability to like have their own person and personality. Like, they become a product. So that's not a self pursuit anymore. That is like existing for other people. If happiness is specifically what I want for myself, then I have to find out what like I want, right? Because I'll only ever be happy doing what I want to be doing, and to do that I have to know myself, right? So I think that happiness is solely reliant on the pursuit of finding yourself. Because like you can have like the bits of joy here and there where like you're out and you're like at a drift event and there's cars shooting by you, and like there's this adrenaline and this rush and this connection to like this sport that so many people love, and its connection to like automobiles and vehicles and history that like you get to feel a part of at events like that. Or even like when you go out, or like when I go out and like I skateboard, right? Like I'm using my body. I feel very I feel at one with myself. I feel like not only am I able to get like the dopamine and the serotonin and the adrenaline from using my body and all of the chemicals that releases, like I know that I like that. So that point, that specific piece of happiness or joy or whatever that satisfaction that it brings is just like a tool that I can use to know what happiness is, or at least that I'm moving towards it properly. Another example. I'm a trans person. I have transitioned. I've been on hormone therapy for about 5 years. You know, it's really cool. And that's created a lot of like identity crises. You know, obviously I'm going to think about what people think of me, how I think of myself, how I need to present myself to be able to be seen the way that I want to be seen. It kind of like messes up happiness because for a little bit, I stopped searching for like what makes me happy. And I tried to do what is comfortable, which isn't pursuing myself at all. And so if I'm not living trying to be myself, then I cannot have happiness. And I wasn't clearly happy because like the anxiety, the lack of confidence, the inability to know like what am I going to do with my next day, next month, next year, when like the only thing that occupied my mind was, am I going to get called a slur today? You know, my transition led away from who I wanted to be when the original decision was to accept myself for who I was. It took me a lot of time to be able to put myself back on the right track and actually like spend every day doing something to learn more about myself. The whole point of my transition was to open up all of these avenues to new experiences so that I would stop being so scared of like accepting myself. One thing I started trying to do more recently, it was something that had always interested me, but you know, not growing up with it and not being able to like know that I'm good is scary. But like I started doing makeup, you know, I started trying to like feel pretty and trying to make myself like look cute and stuff. Like it's been a lovely experiment in outward expression. And the change that I have internally towards myself is one that's much more loving and fulfilling. And it's in that love and fulfillment that I think happiness actually lies. It's something that carries out through more than just the day or the time that I'm doing it. Another thing that like I've noticed this in other than like my hobbies and my sports is again like that outward presentation. And this is likely because I'm somebody who's been scared about how I'm perceived. But taking the power back and experimenting with how I look has allowed me to be more me, you know? And so like changing my outfits, changing my makeup, like I spent a lot of my life scared. Like I wore a black t-shirt or a red, specifically red Adidas Addy Cool t-shirt because the texture was right and it had nothing on it. So it was basic and I felt like people wouldn't look at me, you know? And nowadays, like I got face piercings and I've colored hair. These things, the specific things, are not what makes me happy. It's the expression, it's the experimenting, it's getting to feel like myself. That is truly my happiness. And every time that I do something new to try and fulfill more of me, I'm able to see myself as a more full, a larger person. And that allows me to every single day feel more happy to be. So that's, to me, where happiness truly lies, in that space where I'm trying to find myself. So yeah, that was a great question, Professor. It helped me think a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope the audio worked.